Good evening, folks. Good evening, listeners to This Week in Interview, listeners to TDN Radio. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Interview with your host, Anthony Drago. First off the bat, let me apologize for last week. We were coming on, and then I guess the carnival did not want us to compete. So, Ash Wednesday, really. And so we had technical issues that just prevented us from going live. But speaking of carnival, I hope you all had a great carnival. I understand that there were two um, road fatalities in Dominica, and so our sincere condolences to the families of the folks, young men who lost their lives. I think both of them in motorcycle accidents, and the appeal goes out to the authorities to really do something about uh, motorcycle safety, riding with helmets and other protective gear, and really just really education of our young folks as they enjoy riding motorcycles. Give them really maybe a mandatory course in safety, something that we needed because we have so few young people. We cannot afford to be losing them so prematurely from maybe preventable accidents. Right. So that's it. I don't want to dwell on it too much. I just want to say condolences to the family and the friends of the deceased, and of course to the entire community. It's a loss when we see such young people and promising young people meet their demise so prematurely. But welcome back, folks. So those of you who are regular listeners and you come back every week, I want to tell you thank you, and I appreciate your support and your long-lasting and durable, what should I say, loyalty. Um, I don't take it for granted. I really, really appreciate you coming back every week and spending an hour with us on This Week in Interview. And if for whatever reason tonight is the first time that you listen to This Week in Interview, I hope you find it sufficiently, or should I say, enjoyable and sufficiently thought stimulating that you will come back and you can join the ranks of the regular listeners. This Week in Interview is, of course, carried live in Dominica on RVR Jams Radio, DigiPlay Channel 59. And so we always like to recognize and thank the management for that. And in Canada, in the Toronto market, Radio Online SBE carries This Week in Interview live as well. And of course, you can catch This Week in Interview on our Facebook page. We have our own Facebook page, This Week in Interview. We also have our own YouTube channel, This Week in Interview, as well. So you can catch us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and all the other social media. And if you happen to be listening on one of those media, I encourage you to like us, follow us, and hit the notification bell so you can know when this program is on and some of the other great programming that we have. Tonight we are commenting down from Carnival, and you know there are certain topics that I really enjoy. Those of you who've been here um, over the years, politics, of course, is one. The health is another one. Healthcare, social issues, economics, and so on. But I really really enjoy the literary acts, the writing, and I always take great pleasure in bringing new works to you, in bringing new writers to you, and sharing with you the experience of these wonderfully talented folks. And tonight I have the great pleasure to introduce you to a writer. She's new to me, so I'm thinking maybe she's new to you as well. A daughter of the soil, Miss Rebecca Lynn, and she is launching a brand new book called The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. It's of course by title, you know, it's sort of like a thriller. And so I don't, unfortunately, I don't have my copy as yet, but I'm going to get my copy because I understand that it's just become available on Amazon uh, today. or maybe in the last day or so. So I'm going to get my copy, and I hope by the time we finish speaking to Rebecca Lynn, that you also will commit to get your copy as well. So let's do a very, very warm welcome to the author, amazing writer, Miss Rebecca Lynn. It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to this weekend interview.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, awesome. As I said, always excited when I discover new talent. Uh, when I say discover new talent, it's not as if you're getting your talent or your fame through me. It's just me becoming aware of your work and your writing. So I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself to to the audience. Who is Rebecca Lynn?
Okay, so Rebecca Lynn, that's my pen name. My legal name is Becky John Baptist, and I am an anesthesiologist and intensivist by profession. So I work at the DCFH.
Hmm.
And also, since I've been a child, I've loved reading. I grew up in a family where reading was one of the main hobbies of my parents and some of my uncles and aunts. So I grew up reading and writing. From childhood, I've
Hmm.
been writing, and but this is my first publication. So I've written books and short stories since I've been a child, but this is my first published work. So
Published work. Okay.
yes,
When you
I
say where in Dominica did you grow up?
I grew up in Belfast.
In Belfast. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
So pretty much Maho, Belfast area.
right, Maho, Belfast.
Maho,
Yes.
Belfast. Okay.
Hmm.
And you said your parents were avid readers.
Yes, my parents are very readers. My father is an accountant, but he was also a musician. He played with Bells Combo,
Oh,
and he
okay.
used to compose music. And my mother is a teacher. She's retired now, and she actually wrote a social studies book that is used in one of the schools in Dominica.
Oh,
So
wow.
I mimicked them in my childhood, like I would see them writing. So I wanted to follow them too and write, and that's how it
Okay.
started. Mhm.
So from Bell's Combo fame, who's your father?
Lennox John Baptist.
Leonard John Baptist. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I was a little boy when Bell's Combo was famous, but I do
Mhm.
remember a few of them. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Mhm. So you've been writing from since you were a young child. What
Yeah,
you have a notebook full of early works.
I have many books. Maria may have destroyed some, but I have a lot. But my mom always suggested that I published, and I was always very shy about it.
Mm,
But I think COVID changed me. I worked in St. Lucia for 10 years. So what during the COVID pandemic, that's where I was working, and I was working with the most critically ill COVID patients in the ICU, and I saw so much death that it just impressed upon me that life is short and that we have to live life to the fullest. So that's what propelled me to say, okay, I'm going to cast away my shyness and publish.
wow.
Yes.
Well, congratulations first of all on the release of your first book, and you even succeeded in getting it to be available on Amazon. That in itself is a feat because it was a process.
Yeah. Yes.
So go ahead.
So yes. I must mention River Ridge Press in Dominica. That is my publisher, Miss
Hmm.
Christine Semela. She's an author as well, and she publishes. So she actually, when I returned to Dominica, I saw one of her books at Jay's. I read it. I liked it. So I contacted her, and she did not know me, but she was kind enough to read. It was a short story at the time. She
Hmm.
read the short story version. She liked it, and she told me, "Okay, this can be expanded. You could put some meat on the bones and make it into a novel," which I did. So
Okay.
she is the publisher. She was my editor and publisher. And I must also mention Wendy Walsh, who was the proofreader and the one who placed it on Amazon. So I did not have to go through all the IT nitty gritty Amazon
Hmm.
stuff. She did all of that for me. So I must thank her. And of course, the cover was designed by Giselle Laura, who's also Dominican. And I think she did a very amazing job. So I must mention these three women, without whom I would not have a published book.
Right. I think we've had Miss Imelda on this program already, not by herself, but as part of the. I think she's part of the literary groups in Dominica. Somebody remind me of which one, but I'm sure Dominicans are aware of her. So it's great that you got that encouragement. So I want to talk to you about writing. um, when do you write, how you write, because being an anesthesiologist, I know it's a grueling program, and it's also a very demanding career. So when do you get time to write? Just talk to us about your writing, what it means to you to write, and when do you write, how do you get your inspiration, and so on.
Okay, so when I'm writing, I need to have a very clear mind. I need to be fully awake, have a clear mind so I can imagine things and go into different characters. So, like you said, my job is demanding, so I don't write often. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of times I'm too tired, I have too much work to do. So, sometimes if I'm free on a weekend after I've done my chores, maybe on a Sunday, I will write a bit for a couple hours,
Hmm.
because of course writing itself gets me tired because I go into the characters I write, so
Right.
that to become them, that becomes tiring as well. So it actually took me, in terms of writing this book, it took me about 3 years or about 2 or so years, because of course I had to wait for when I had free time or when I'm on vacation, that kind of thing, to really delve into it.
So, like for example, writing this book, did you like? Are you a very you probably a very structured person, especially given your career. But in your writing, are you that type of also structured to where you follow classic, um, developing your story, creating your manuscript, and so on, or do you? As you say, you get into character. Do you sometimes just let the character lead you? Let's talk about that creative part somewhat.
Okay, so I do both. I'm structured in that I start with my notebook and my pen,
Mm-hmm.
and I write all the characters down and I give them a complete story. So I would
Mm-hmm.
give them a birth date, parents, nationality of their parents, all these details which I may or may not use after, but I need to have that structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start writing from there. I also get my theme first, so whatever I want the theme or themes of the story to be, before I actually start writing. And even if that's structured, though, sometimes, like you said, I will make the character be the character. So when I get into the character, even if I maybe did not have that particular outcome for them, when I am that character, whatever they would then choose based on their personality may be a different outcome than what I originally thought would be.
Okay. So so you let your characters interact and you get carried along in the story and see where it goes sometimes.
Yes.
Mhm. So this first book is what do you call it, a thriller. Um, well, it's a haunting, so it's some supernatural um, is in there. Why is that a favorite genre of yours?
Yes, that's one of my favorite genres. Horror, supernatural, thriller, that's one of my favorite genres. And also, I wanted to bring in the history of Dominica, especially the Maroon history and
Hmm.
our folklore.
Hmm.
And to bring that in, I thought the best genre would be a horror supernatural genre,
Right.
to bring in the Maroons, like the ghosts, the spirits of the Maroons, and of course to talk about the folklore. So I focus on Papa Boa and Mama Glue as the
Hmm.
supernatural beings, and of course there's the ghosts of some of the Maroons there as well. So that's why I chose that genre.
Okay. Before we get too far along, can you you said you have a summary. Can you give us a little quick summary? Because the book just came out, so the audience probably didn't have a chance. Most likely haven't had a chance to read it, most of them. So can you give us a
Okay.
little summary of the story?
So this is the cover right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the summary. Best friends Imani Stewart and Ella Blackman have moved to the Caribbean island of Dominica to operate an eco lodge on a secluded plateau called Mountain Ridge. Mountain Ridge is where the Mingos, descendants of the great Maroon chief Mabuya and his wife Ghana, reside. The Mingos have been protecting the forest for centuries. Imani and Ella have both been through traumatic experiences over the last few years and are eager to find peace, rejuvenation, and purpose on the island of their parents' birth. In addition, Imani is desperate to learn about her mother's family, as her mother refuses to tell her anything about her past on the island. When the friends meet Lester Jefferson, their friendship, success as business owners, and even their lives are threatened. Will the enduring love of sisterhood save them, or will the supernatural forces that call Mountain Ridge home prevail?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That piques my curiosity. Um, where so they moved to Dominica from North America, from another island,
From the UK.
from the UK, from the UK.
Yes.
Okay,
I
and
think
so
because most of my family live in the UK, I
mhm.
thought I would be truer to the characters if they were coming from the UK as opposed to from North America.
Oh, so some of your cousins might find themselves in those characters, huh?
Yes, well, actually, Imani, I have one of my closest cousins. His name is Emmanuel. We call
Uh-huh.
him Iman for short, so I just named the character after him because he's British, but he went to school to SMA in
Mm-hmm.
Dominica, and
Mm-hmm.
he loves Dominica very much. So I
Okay.
wanted to honor him in that way.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
And I guess I don't we don't want to give too much of the story, but I can see several threads coming in there where you talk about friendship and sisterhood, and you know Dominica is not the most. Dominica is beautiful, but it is not the easiest terrain to capture. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the easiest. So moving in from the UK and coming to do a business, especially in I guess set in the forest, is these girls are really up for a challenge. And so folks, I encourage you to get your copy of the book. The title of the book is called The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. And my guest tonight on this weekend interview is Miss Rebecca Lynn. And she says she's been writing from since she was a child, but this is her first uh, publication. And so she's excited to bring that work to you, set in Dominica, and you know, threading in some of our folklores and some of the history. Uh, how much research did you do in the historically to set your story?
Okay, so I had read before Lennox Honeychurch's book in the Forest of Freedom, and
Hmm.
that really opened my eyes about the Maroon history because I did history in high school. I went to convent and it was compulsory up to fifth form, and we didn't touch very much on the Maroons. They were like a side note kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I read his book, I was amazed at just how much, how much resistance they put up against the colonization and so forth. And I was impressed, and I really wish that we would talk more about the Maroons because that spirit I think is still important to have where you fight against oppression, you fight against the wrongs in society, and you focus on resilience because they were living on the mountains and they were resilient enough to, for example, Jack who lived on the mountains for years, so that shows a lot of resilience.
Hmm.
And I think that's an important spirit for us to capture and for us to teach our young people about. So that's really that sparks that reading that book sparks me to include them in my fictional work So I reread it before I started writing, and of course I read articles online as well.
Okay. Are you
Yeah,
familiar with Dr. Fontaine's book as well, The Maroons of
Bala,
Dominica?
I
Yeah.
I heard of it and I want to get it to read. Yes.
Yeah. He's on is full of a lot of research. And he spent a lot of time in libraries in the UK um,
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of research. So that would be a good book as well. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. When we did Caribbean history, um, of course, Caribbean history would have been dominated a lot by the other islands that are more um, out there in terms of and more advanced in terms of their technology. I remember when we started with the people who came. But when I was in grammar school, Dr. Honeychurch, who you referred to, had written a series of history books, and that's what we did for history in grammar school. Um, but again, as you said, the treatment of the Maroons was, just a side note. And so I guess your hope is that if you include it in fiction, the people who read your book at least will glean some of the heroism and some of the sacrifices that those Maroons made for our people. So is that something that, although your work is fiction, do you talk to us about how you try to make your work have some authenticity, authentic in terms of historical context and geographic context and those type of things.
Okay, so in terms of this setting, it's set on a mountain ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So from reading the history, I know that the Maroons tended to live on mountains or mountain ridges, and of course, with access to water.
Mm-hmm.
So I have it set on a mountain ridge, and they're actually on that ridge there. I exaggerated a bit, so I have there are 5 lakes because of course fiction allows you to be
Mm-hmm.
extra. So there
Mm-hmm.
are 5 lakes on the mountain ridge. So they are far from the Europeans. They're able to ambush and surveil the advance of the Europeans because of the heights. And
Mm-hmm.
of course they have fresh water and they're close enough to a plantation because even if I had not read Bala, I know that from what I heard, he was able to have strikes on the Rosalie estates from the
Mm-hmm.
heights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. So from Mountain Ridge, my maroon was Mabuya. That's why I'm wearing the lizard. So
Okay.
he was able to come down and have raids on the plantation, which was called Pleasant Valley Plantation.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to raid them, to raid it.
To
And
read.
my mother is from Colliho, so I know there were also Maroons in the heights of Colliho.
Mm-hmm.
And up to the 70s and 80s, well, the 60s and 70s, I know they used to actually get artifacts from them there. So, and also Dr. Honeychurch said that those Maroons would strike the armory in Colliho, La Place Dame, it's called, where the French kept their arms.
Right.
So I imagined that. I imagined the Maroons on the ridge, on my fictitious ridge, coming
Mm-hmm.
down into the valley, into the plantation, and taking slaves to free them, as well as taking food and other stuff, and of
Right.
course destroying the economic growth of the planters by
Yeah.
doing these raids. Mm-hmm.
It is important to tell those stories because sometimes they try to give us the impression that our people just submitted um, to slavery as something that was hopeless, and until some other European came by and pleaded their case, if it wasn't for them, we would still be enslaved. So it's that type of history and that type of recording of our history in works of art. In terms of fiction, it's fiction, yes, but it also tells that story. So that is extremely important to know. Did you do? do you have female heroines as well?
Yes, well, Mabuya's married. Well, not legally, but he has a wife, Ghana.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. So Ghana. I use Ghana in homage for the country Ghana, which I know many
Hmm.
of our slaves came from. So I
Right.
just dropped the H, so it's Gana.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Very, very, very interesting. Folks, again, if you joined us late, my guest tonight on this weekend interview is Miss Rebecca Lynn. She is the author of her freshly minted published book, uh, her novel, The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. And I encourage you to get your copy. It's available on Amazon. If you're in Dominica as well, you have copies available in Dominica, right?
Yes. Well, at the luncheon, I'm going to be selling copies, and
Mm-hmm.
if any are not sold, they're going to be then at J's.
Or you're going to have them as at Jay's
Yes.
bookstore as well. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations with that. So we're pretty much at the half hour mark. So I'm going to take the commercial break now. You mentioned the launching, the book launching that you have tomorrow. When we come back, I will invite you to read a little excerpt from the story, and then we're going to talk about the launching of the book and try to encourage folks who are in Dominica to attend the launching. So, folks, let's take a quick break. Let's hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. I'll continue my conversation with Miss Rebecca Lynn, the author of the book, The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. We'll be right back.
Presented by. People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
A smart house run by a vengeful AI. A mute witness to an act of unspeakable evil. A breadfruit thief is haunted. A young man unwittingly creates a god. Giant crapos terrorize a community. A witch seeks revenge on her neighbors, and much more. The Piton Noir Writing Collective is thrilled to announce the release of the third book in their acclaimed anthology series, The Flying Crapo. Flying Crapo, Heroes and Monsters. Now available for purchase on Amazon.com. Get your copy today and embark on a journey filled with heroes, monsters, and the magic of the Caribbean.
Get ready for an electrifying thriller. A fearless New York attorney takes on corrupt corporate giants fighting for the powerless. Can this seasoned attorney and his team take down a monstrous company and its powerful leader? What will be the final verdict? What price will our heroes pay? Find out as you turn the pages of The Trust by Sam George. Get your copy of The Trust today from Amazon.com.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com, Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us through the break. I hope that you are enjoying the conversation so far. It's one of my favorite type of interviews. I love talking about books. I love talking about writing, but also I love to discover new talent. And so my guest tonight on this week in interview is Miss Rebecca Lynn, and she is on the program tonight with us because she has just released her new book, The Haunting at Mountain Lodge, the Haunting at Mountain Lodge, and her book is available on Amazon, and she's also saying that it will be available at Jay's bookstore. But tomorrow, March 13th at 7 p.m., she is hosting her book launching. So, Rebecca, tell us a little bit more about the event that you're planning tomorrow.
Okay, so the event, like you said, will be at the UE Global Campus from 7 p.m. and that's on Emsall Road in Roseau. And we will start with a few short speeches. So my publisher and editor, Miss Kristen Semelda, will have a short speech, as well as Father Coffee will speak about conservation of the rivers. He has been involved in that for quite a few years, so I thought since one of my themes is on conservation, I thought it would be good for him to speak about the conservation and how all of us could get involved in doing that, because I know and we have to develop Dominica, but while doing so, we also need to protect our gifts, what we have, for future generations. Right. And I think we're in a beautiful position where others have developed before us, so we can learn from their mistakes as we go forward to develop our country. So yes, and then after that, I will say a small speech and I will read excerpts from the book. So therefore, the book is told from 4 points of views. That's Imani and Ella, who are the two coming from England, as well as Selene, who is one of Mabuya's descendants, who is going to be working with the two British ladies. And the three of them, their stories is in 2014. Then there's a fourth character, Bernadette, who gives us some back history. So her point of view is from the 70s. So the story will be told from those 4 points of views. So I will read excerpts from each of those characters, and then I would take questions afterwards. People are free to buy books, and I will sign them, and there'll be some refreshments as well. Yeah,
I wish I was in Dominica to attend. Maybe we'll get you to do a book launching in New York.
That'd be great. I love New York. It's my favorite city.
New York is your favorite city. Oh wow! I believe you too, because I see your face light up when you talk about New York. So are you going to read? Can you read one of the excerpts for us, just to give us
Okay.
a small taste?
Before I read, can I just Dr. Fountain mentioned something on the screen. Can I just comment on it?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so yeah, he mentioned that the Maroons used Old Bear and African customs and so forth. So all that is in my book as well. So the Mingos, which are descendants of Mabuya and Ghana, they do practice old African rituals and so forth to commune with Mabuya and Ghana and to get advice from them. Yes.
Right, and so that keeps in the theme, thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Thompson is also asking what time is the event tomorrow.
It's at 7 p.m.
It's at 7 p.m. at the UE. I see you said open campus.
It's open or global. I think they use
Global.
Same,
Okay.
it's the same building on Emsall Road.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's at UE at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that although it's a work of fiction, although it's a thriller, you obviously seem very dedicated to putting in actual historical perspective and stories and context in there. And also, I see you mentioned about Father Coffee and his appeal to us to conserve our rivers, because on Friday is International Day for Action for Rivers. It's the day for action for rivers. It's a day when we have to take some kind of action to protect our rivers. And of course, Father Coffee is popularly known as the river champion in Dominica. And so I'm not surprised that he's the person that you chose for that. But let's get to the excerpt, and then we'll continue the conversation about Father Coffee and
Okay.
conservation and all of that. Yeah.
All right. So I started the dedication to the majestic Dominican forests, our past, present, and future, our solace and sustenance. To the semicolon, the most hopeful of punctuation marks. A stumble is not the end of your story. Press on. And the exit is from Cellini. I tried to warn Mr. McQueen that he was getting in over his head. Tried to influence his choices, the way the moon pooled on the ocean. But he just ignored me. After all, Lester Jefferson was offering him milk and honey. Why would he listen to my talk about conservation of the forest for the sake of all concerned? I remembered Peter McQueen's demise like it was yesterday, when in reality it had been over 6 months ago. When he first moved to the island, he was not a heavy drinker. By the time he died, he was drinking 2 or 3 bottles of hard liquor a day. The alcohol was his breakfast, his dinner, and his lover. His cheek glowed red, and his breath reeked. I suspected he used alcohol to ward off the visions he must have been experiencing. Tormenting visions that were the inheritance of those who dared to destroy the forest. And I wondered how much time he had left. I saw what happened to Mr. McQueen during a lucid dream, a gift of clairvoyance I inherited from Mabuya. He had been on the island just over 4 years, and the lodge was set to expand by opening 3 new cabins the next week, when, on that final night, he sauntered along the pier singing an old English tune with a bottle of strong Dominican rum in his hand. The mist swirled around him, then parted like a curtain, revealing a beautiful woman in the middle of the lake. Her dreadlocks were decorated with baubles and rings. Mama Glow, mother of the water, and Papa Boa's wife, was indeed a stunning beauty. In the sea, she wooed lost sailors, had her way with them, and then rewarded them with great wealth. But Rose told me that she only appeared in the lake when someone was doomed to die. My pulse quickened, and I knew that McQueen's death was inevitable, a reckoning for his hubris. He came here and was disrespectful of our ways, determined to undermine the legacy I planned to leave for Ivy. Eventually, Mr. McQueen was enamored with all the plants. Initially, Mr. McQueen was enamored with all the plants and creatures on the ridge. That all changed when he formed an unholy alliance with Lester Jefferson during the last 4 months of his life. Trust me, Papa Boa and Mama Glue were not always forgiving. They could be feisty and vengeful. Still, I could not help but feel sorry for the Englishman. When Mama beckoned to him with her face twisted in a smile and her bracelets moving along her wrist, he dropped the bottle. It crashed onto the wooden pier, shattering into hundreds of shards. As the clear liquid spilled through the planks, Mr. McQueen dived into the lake as if to save the rum. With a natural speed, she swam to him, grabbed his legs, and took him under the water. Her rainbow-colored, iridescent tail was the last thing I saw before the lake went still again. That night, I sat up in bed, perspiring profusely despite the chilly air. Most people would have thought that Mr. McQueen simply drowned, a drunkard led to a watery grave by his liquor god. But I had just witnessed my employer's death. By the way, how is Mama Glow? I asked, re-entering the present moment. She was fine weeks ago when I last saw her, but we've both been busy since then, Papa said. I knew weeks could actually be months to immortal beings due to their warped sense of time. Days stretched before them like lazy, rainy afternoons. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but Papa, if Emmanuel and Ella prove to be a problem, can't we simply frighten them into living instead of Mama Glow doing her thing again? The corner of his thick lips twitched mischievously. You know how this goes, my child. First, they will receive warnings. Mama Glow only comes into the picture if they choose to ignore them. It has been so from time immemorial. So it seemed my new boss's destinies were in their own hands. I had no control over it. I was simply an omniscient narrator in their story. I could watch, report to Papa, but I had little influence in the trajectory of their fate, if any at all. Would these two friends be content in operating a small eco lodge in the Caribbean? Or would they want to attain even more wealth and property? Would they want to trample on the laws and customs of Dominica? Would they see the forest as land to be plundered and conquered? Or would they exhibit reverence? We will keep in touch, Papa said. When he turned away, I watched him walk back into the forest. The bottom part of his body was that of a goat with thick brown fur and hooves. He still hung almost to the ground. I didn't want to be devious or deceitful, but I was fascinated by this dichotomy, half man, half beast. Still, he was the most humane being I knew. When I looked at that tail and those hooves, I did not see a monster. I saw a kind soul. The only monsters I knew had 2 feet and silky tongues. That's
Fascinating. So, so many, our folklore growing up, we read about mermaids, which in Creole we say Papa Glow, because there's some listeners who are not Dominican, so they don't have the benefit of the Creole. So and Papa Bois is wood, and Papa, of course, everybody knows Papa. And so a lot of our stories take us into that realm of the supernatural, and where we have those that are not, maybe evil is not the word, but they're not kind, and there are those who come for our benefit. And you seem to be straddling that sort of concept where people, it's not automatically a bad thing. It's like Dr. Fontaine's comment where he said that the Maroons would use obeah to get themselves into a state where they were invincible almost, and give them the courage. And so, talk to us about your interaction, your thoughts around our folklore and the supernatural and superstition and so on.
Sorry, repeat that question.
Yeah, when our folklore, Dominican folklore, which you seem to have threaded into your story quite a bit, includes supernatural beings. And some people have a frightening relationship with that, and some people, I guess, embrace it because. So let's talk about that part of your thoughts in terms of the superstition part of our folklore and how it seems to impact decisions that people still make on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so I think the supernatural part of our folklore was vilified, possibly by colonization.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's necessarily evil. I think aspects can be,
Mm-hmm.
but I really think a lot of it was vilified by the colonizers. I
Right.
more see, when I look at them, I more see them as cautionary tales, like ways to tell people not to do certain things and do certain things instead. So to me, Papa Boys, I see him as warning you not to destroy the forest, to have respect for the forest.
Right.
Mama Glue, the same for the waters.
Mm-hmm.
And even there is this other character in Trinidad, the Dwen, who is the child who dies without being baptized and then becomes a ghost or an
Right.
evil character. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is talking about children dying without being baptized. So a lot of them were either their cautionary tales to either follow a certain norm in society. For example, get your children baptized, which is another argument we can have, or they are to warn children to live a certain way, to take care of the environment. So that's how I see them. And I'm sure you've heard of Game of Thrones. So I've read the series,
Mm-hmm.
the books, and
Right.
what was different about George R.R. Martin's fantasy as opposed to Tolkien, who did Lord of the Rings, is that in Lord of the Rings, characters were either good or bad.
Right.
And George R.R. Martin toppled everything on its head where characters were neither good or bad, they just made good or bad decisions. So I see the supernatural characters in that latter way where they're not necessarily good or bad. They make decisions that one time may be a good one, another time might be a bad decision. And
Right.
when it's bad, you'll call it evil. When it's good, it's not evil. Yes. So that was my spin on it in writing the
Yeah.
book.
And also there was this strong thread of principle. It's like, okay, these are the laws, these are the rules, and if you know, if people violate those laws and those rules, there are consequences, especially if they do it repeatedly and ignore warnings. So as you said, a lot of our folklore tends to impact those kind of lessons to our people. um, that if you destroy the forest, there are bad consequences to that, consequences that will negatively affect you, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, I see that, and of course the water. So Dominica really is mountains, forests, and water, and I think your work in that regard would tend to remind us of that. Now, you spoke about the event tomorrow, and one of the speakers that you have is going to talk about rivers, conservation of rivers, Father Coffee. Are you an environmentalist? Do you consider yourself an environmentalist?
I do. I'm not in any official groups, but I do love the environment and I want to
Hmm.
take care of it.
Right,
I'm I'm a member of Rotary Club of Dominica, and that is one of our area of focus, the environment.
the environment.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of work that is going on in our forests, next to our rivers, in our rivers, and so on. Did that influence some of your writing?
Yes, it did. Because when I came back, I see a lot of changes, and like I said, I know things have to change, things should
Hmm.
change, but it's a matter of us just being aware that while developing, we need to protect the environment because, like you said, there are consequences to not protecting it. We need to be, we need to have a sustainable development.
Right. And
And
especially coming from St. Lucia, right?
yes, yes,
What I mean by that is, I imagine that St. Lucia was similar to Dominica in terms of our water when I spend time in St. Lucia, it seems like they've lost a lot of their water resources. So, having lived in both places, do you do that comparison?
yes. I did that comparison, man, because in St. Lucia, a friend of mine was brave enough to take me to a waterfall, and I was appalled because that was not a water. It was just some water dripping like from a faucet. And yes, I picture Dominica being like that in another, I don't know, 20 years or so, and it breaks my heart, you know. I would really like us to conserve while we grow. The two can happen together.
Right.
And I lived in Jamaica too. I lived in Jamaica, and well, they have a lot of waterways, a lot of huge waterways in Jamaica.
But did you also witness maybe the same kind of maybe unplanned or not adequately planned quote unquote development?
What's in Jamaica? What I observed was foreigners or private citizens being allowed to buy what the public considered public space. So there was the Blue Lagoon, I believe, that somebody was able to purchase, and some other beaches where the locals are not allowed to be on because there are major hotels accessing those beaches. So that was the way I saw it in Jamaica. Yes.
Yeah, I was in Dominica recently, and there were some rivers that we used to access because they had really nice bassin, and I noticed that some of them had fencing, which were traditional tracks that we would go through as kids to go to the river. And I noticed some of them had barriers, like looks like a private entrance to somebody's land. And I wondered about that loss of access to the public, to those rivers. And so it's interesting that those two examples that you gave are really, really very interesting and instructive to Dominicans as to where we can end up if we don't preserve what we have. If we don't preserve our forests, Emerald Pool could be that Mabuya just peeing a little stream, falling down into what was once Emerald Pool, or Trafalgar, the waterfalls, because there's a lot of development in that area with the geothermal project, and we have some hotels going on in that area. So, a full circle back to the book. It's fascinating that that folks like you, who are artists, who are writers, you use your talent and your craft to really record those aspects of the country, and at the same time stimulate thinking and stimulate people to think about things in that way. And sometimes that message gets in easier because it doesn't appear that you're on a mission to convince anybody about not cutting down a tree. You simply telling a story, and it's highlighted in there. Is that something that how important is that, I should ask, to you as you develop your works, although they are works of fiction? How important is it to you that your readers are affected in that sort of way?
It's very important to me. I want them, of course, to first enjoy my work, but also to get something larger from it. And things that I love the environment and I want to conserve it. So yes, I would really appreciate if they would understand. And all of us are responsible in little or big ways to help conserve the environment. Something simple as not cutting down a tree in our backyard or not dumping waste in the river.
Right.
So it's up to all of us. Each of us have a part to play. Yes.
And the fact is, if you don't follow the rules, Mama Glow is going to come for you one of those days, right?
Right. And I think so that was also my way, like when you're sort of powerless in something in real life, but you can gain power from writing it.
Right.
So I'm powerless and I cannot tell John to not throw his garbage in the Belfast River, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't make Mama go punish John for doing so in my work.
In your work, right? And,
Yes.
and yeah, and I guess that is what art is. Whether it's a mural like Margot does in various locations in Dominica, or a poem or a novel, if our artists are aware enough, like as and conscious enough as you are, you can weave that into your story. So as we approach the end of the hour, I want to again come back to the book. I want to encourage the audience to get a copy, support a young writer, very talented writer. She has a very demanding career and profession, but she still takes the time to write and to bring her art to us. And so we can show our appreciation by supporting her and getting her book. But not just that, we're not just doing it just for the sake of support. The From what you hear that you read, it seems as though it's it, it's a well-written work, a fully developed story, an enjoyable read. And so I would encourage everyone to please go to Amazon and search for the book. It's called The Haunting at Mountain Lodge, and the author is right here with us, Miss Rebecca Lynn. Get your copy, and I'm really trying to encourage the audience to make gifts. So if Easter is coming, buy a copy of the book or some other book, buy a local author, give it as a gift. You have young people for a birthday, give them a copy of the book. And let us start using those works and those products as our gifts instead of just another toy, another doll, another truck, another puzzle, or something like that. Let us use the works that are available as gifts. So Rebecca, as we wrap up, I want to give you the mic to. You've already mentioned some folks that you said thank you to. There are others, you can do that, and you can also just talk in general about your book.
Okay, so what anybody who's in Dominica, I'd encourage you to come out tomorrow night to UE Global Campus or UE Open Campus on Emsall Road from 7 p.m. And I will read some excerpts from the book. You will also hear from Father Coffey about river conservation. And you will have a chance to buy the novel there. It's $40 EC at the venue. And I'll be there to sign copies, and there'll be some light refreshments after. And of course, like Mr. Drago said, it's also available on Amazon in both a paperback version and an ebook version. So I encourage you to purchase it and read it. And if you do read it, please leave a rating on Amazon. That will help me a lot in going up the ranks on Amazon and Goodreads.
Awesome. And so yeah, folks, you got it. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the UWI Center on Emsall Road, Rebecca will be launching her book, The Haunting of Mountain Lodge, The Haunting at Mountain Lodge. And I encourage you to go there, get your signed and autographed book. And 10 years from now, when Rebecca is a famous and if a whole body of work behind her, maybe even a movie that's made from one of her books, you can say, I was there at the initial launching of this tremendous talent. But go there tomorrow, get your autographed copy of the book. And if for whatever reason you cannot make it there, find your way to Jay's bookstore as soon as possible and get your copy there. And if you really cannot get to Dominica to get your hands on a copy, go to Amazon and get your copy. It's available in the e-version as well as in paperback. So I want to encourage you to support and encourage you to enjoy the talent that Rebecca is offering to share with us. And so, Rebecca, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on this week in interview. I want to wish you all the best. I am looking forward to seeing some of the lunch in the event that's taking place tomorrow at 7 p.m. And all the best. I hope to have you back. We are part of the Flying Crapo series, the anthology of it, and your work fits right in smack in the middle of the genre that the Flying Crapo embodies. So who knows? You might see some more work from you very soon. But I want to wish you all the best tomorrow and with your book and all your future writings.
Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure being here with you.
It was a pleasure, was mine actually. I really enjoy that excerpt that you read, and I'm going to get my copy and read it. And maybe after I've read it, because I have not, it just came on Amazon today, so I maybe after I've read it, we can have you back, and we can really have conversations about the stories in the book and that sort of thing. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So, folks, there you have it. Another great talented young Dominican woman. She is an anesthesiologist, which means that she is very smart. I'm sure she's very smart. I understand that program is grueling, and of course, the work demands a lot of focus. People say you put somebody to sleep, and you have to make sure that you can wake them up afterwards. Such a tremendous responsibility on young shoulders. And so we wish her all the best in her career as well. But also, just as important, we wish Rebecca all the best in her work as a writer. With her brand new book, the launching at the Haunting at Mountain Lodge. You can find it on Amazon. Go there, get your copy. If you're in Dominica, you can get it at Jay's. But if at all possible, make your way to the UWI Center tomorrow on Emsall Road and get you an autographed copy of the book. The event starts at 7 p.m. So, folks, I want to tell you thank you so much for staying with us, for being here tonight. Again, I want to apologize for last week that we had some stuff out of our control. Next week, we have another program on tap of this week in interview. We are going to be talking to another young lady who is organizing a wellness retreat. And so you don't want to miss that one. Health is the most important aspect of our wealth. And so she is going to be talking to us about her retreat that she's planning. It's entitled Make Your Food Your Medicine. Very, very fascinating topic. That's what we'll be dealing with next week. Wednesdays, make sure you make the time to attend, invite 5 people to listen with you, because the information that's going to be shared might save somebody that you love very much, might save their life. It might change your life. So make sure you tune in next week, Wednesday. In the meantime, folks, continue to stay safe. And I hope we've all recovered from Carnival. I understand there's a flu going around that's pretty severe. I don't know what it's called. I know Dominicans are creative like that. They usually give whatever flu the popular name. So maybe it might have the road match name, DPP, or some of the more popular Booyah songs. There's so many names that you can have there. But see you next week, Wednesday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another program of This Week in Interview. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Good night.